Hi, guys. Welcome to the Church Split. My name is Will, and you know what we do here. We help you escape your church's echo chamber, learn to think biblically, and of course, challenge the status quo, which always needs challenging. But first, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Church Split. And if you like, you can support me on Patreon. You can support it for as low as $1 a month. And another great way you can support me, if you'd like, is you can order my book now on Amazon, Crushing the Great Serpent. Did God Punish Jesus? Available on Amazon. Actually, it looks like right now, I just checked, it looks like it went live. So you go buy that there for the whole diatribe if you would like. And also, if you've already read it or whatever, leave me a 5-star review on there. It does help because it's brand new. So want to get as many up as possible. So hope you guys are doing well. Tim the Ancient, good to see you in the chat. It looks like I didn't think about this. You know, I'm releasing my book with Reformation Day. And that's kind of the whole point of it. And but it releases on European time, so it's a little early here in the States. But I noticed that Idol Killer is doing a stream right now on why you don't understand Calvinism. Right on Reformation Day, like on the cusp of that. You think I'm going to get any live viewers? Probably not. Especially as we talk about a topic that either you're going to care about or you don't. So anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and kind of just talk about this for a minute, because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this issue with Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. Now, many of you guys probably know that Dr. Jordan B. Peterson is a very famous psychologist and speaker slash kind of philosopher, and he works for the Daily Wire. He did that. He partnered with them later. He had his own very successful brand, and he has a great book called 12 Rules for Life and Antidote to Chaos. He has a less great book called another 12 Rules for Life, and I forget what the thing is under that, but it's a black version, a black book. And then, of course, his first book was Maps of Meaning, which is okay. And then he recently released another book called We Who Wrestle with God. Now, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, another thing I should mention is I actually really like him. He has a lot of really good things to say. He speaks very good about various topics. There's certain things he does a little less good on, but I actually really enjoy a lot of what he does. Braxton Hunter, by the way, real fast is in the chat. What's up, dude? He says, what's up, brothers and sisters? Will teaches both my kids and they love him. Just want everyone to know he is an incredible servant offline too. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, your girls are a blessing, actually, in our student ministry, like a ton. I didn't get to say goodbye to Jacqueline at youth group though tonight. I was caught for a while in another conversation. So anyhow, for those who do not know, yes, I am actually youth pastor at Braxton Hunter's church, and his daughters are in the youth group, which is a lot of fun. And every Wednesday I do youth group, which is why sometimes I'm a few minutes late running upstairs. I have to like cut conversations short and be like, I got to go for my stream. But anyway, so I absolutely love Jordan Peterson. I have said regularly that the Bible is probably the most impactful book in my life, obviously, because I'm a Christian. I think that is the most powerful book in existence. But otherwise, the next book that's probably impacted me on a personal level has probably been his original 12 Rules for Life. I found that book deeply insightful, very helpful. And it is one I recommend to a lot of young people, especially young men, when they are struggling with getting things started in life. I had a friend reach out to me who's in his 30s and, doesn't really have a career, had never been on a date, stuff like that. And I was like, well, you need to read this book and you need to start there. And that is what I recommend regularly. So when I say that I like Jordan Peterson, I'm very familiar with his work because I've read all his books except for the latest book that just dropped. So very familiar with him, watch a lot of his stuff, agree with him, disagree with him. But there has been this overall conversation that has continually happened when Peterson is talking about religion, which is he tends to avoid talking about what he actually thinks about various things religiously. He has no problem talking about various things in religion, such as just the characters and like the moral lessons we can learn from them. But once it comes down to rubber meets road, where do you stand in religion? He gets very wishy-washy very fast. And you might notice on the thumbnail of this video, I actually used one of his 12 rules for life right there. So he has 2 rules. I was going back and forth on what to put on the thumbnail because one of them is tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And he talks about navigating your life towards the truth. And that means not lying to yourself and creating a false reality. But then he also talks about being precise in your speech. which I think he would argue is what he's doing in this very episode. But I do not think that is actually what he's doing. I think he's muddying the waters, and I think he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. I love Peterson. Like I said, I'm a big fan, but this is something that's gotten quite old for me to watch and witness. And it took actually a bunch of atheists cudgeling him in the corner for him to start exposing this stuff, because bottom line is everyone wants to know what he believes about this. And I'll talk to you as to why people are interested in that here in a minute. But for those who have been living under a rock, or maybe don't follow his work as closely as maybe I do, or others like myself, he recently went on a talk show, or he recently had a conversation with the Dr. Richard Dawkins and Alex O'Connor, who is formerly known as the Cosmic Skeptic. Now, Cosmic Skeptic. I think I said septic by accident. Sorry, Alex. If he'll never watch this, he's much too big to worry about me. But Alex O'Connor is arguably one of the classiest atheists on the internet. I really like him. I've always really enjoyed his content, even though I am not an atheist myself. And Richard Dawkins is probably one of the atheists that I can't stand at all. He's just a very crotchety old man. He's not pleasant. He's very prickly, kind of just not a pleasant individual to listen to or talk to. Everything about him, everything he stands for just seems to be wildly things I don't like. I did a response video earlier this year when he talked about being a cultural Christian. I think that man actually seriously struggles to actually live a consistent lifestyle. So, as far as his beliefs, because one moment he's saying that in one quote, he's like, the God of the Old Testament is all these horrible things. But in another quote, he says, we live in a cold and indifferent universe with no good or evil. So he'll call the God of the Bible evil while saying that the universe does not have evil. He's very confused. And then he says he's a cultural Christian. So he's kind of sad to see the Christian message go by while other worldviews take its place, when he has literally spent his entire life trying to destroy Christianity. So bottom line, as you can tell, he is just actually a big circle of contradiction. So you can imagine my shock when it was him pressing Peterson on something that I actually agree with Dawkins on. I don't enjoy saying those words. I don't. Dawkins isn't right on a lot of stuff, but I do think he's right here. Tim the Ancient says, I'm embarrassed to say it, but JP helped me see the Bible as something that's intrinsically deep and not like this apologetics program to solve and get over with. Exactly. And he's very good at that. He's very good at discussing real issues in the Bible. His explanation of the book of Jonah is phenomenal. So that's what makes this very frustrating to see. So he helps a lot of people understand it, which is what makes these sorts of things bonkers. So anyway, so what happened is that he has this conversation with Richard Dawkins, and Alex O'Connor just kind of officiates it. And what ends up happening is Dawkins starts pressing into Peterson. And he's just pressing into him on what exactly he believes when it comes to the Bible. And we're going to unpack that here. I'm going to just play through it and respond like I normally do. If you do not like people stopping clips, you are at the wrong channel, because I usually do that throughout. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and jump in here. So go ahead and leave your comments and questions and all that stuff, and we'll get to them as we can. So hope everyone can see the screen. I make sure I have my volume up. All right, let's hear what they have to say. By the way, the whole conversation is only about an hour and a half. You put that on 1.5 speed and you'll be just fine. But it's very fascinating, but we're only going to listen to a very small section of this. We're only going to respond to, okay? All right.
You made a statement a couple of months ago that I found very interesting. And I don't claim to understand it, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot with it. You said that you were a cultural Christian. Okay, and so that raised a number of questions in my mind, and the first question was,
you are changing the subject.
I'm not. No, I don't think so. Okay. I may be leaping outside of the topic a bit to get back to it.
We can do cultural Christianity, but I think, because I have a list of questions that you wanted to ask, and that is one of them. But I think Professor Dawkins did ask you...
You were referring to the predictive power and to the utility of the stories.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually what I was trying to zero in on. Okay, so that was the point. Well, it seemed to me that your proclamation that you were a cultural Christian was a recognition and a statement that you had found something in the culture that had been derived from Christianity that you had an affinity with, and that there's some reason for that. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, well, what do you think that Christianity got right that allows you to make a statement like that? I mean, I know that there's differences perhaps in what we both think about the ultimate veracity of the biblical stories, maybe there isn't differences. Like, it would take a lot of conversation to figure this out. But what did you mean by that? Like, what do you think that Christianity got right that would enable you to make a statement like that?
Virtually nothing.
So I do like that Peterson does press on this, but he gets such a reverse Uno card pulled on him here in a minute. But I think it's an important thing to press Dawkins on, because he complains about it going away, and he's had to see it go away. But then he's about to say that virtually nothing. So I do think Peterson is right to kind of press him on this, but I don't think it's going to do much benefit here. And notice what he says here.
I meant by that no more than that I'm brought up in a Christian culture. I went to Christian schools. I therefore know my way around the Bible. I know my way around the Book of Common Prayer. I know the hymns. That's all. I don't value Christianity as a truth system at all.
Okay,
so he doesn't value it at all. Because remember, this is the same man who said that we live in an indifferent universe, no good, no evil, just we exist, okay? So why he's sad to see it go when he sees no value in it at all, which is really easy to say, by the way, when you stand on the towers of Christianity in the West. Everything good that the West possesses basically now is because Christianity pulled the weight. I mean, that is objectively true. The Christians were the ones who pushed against slavery. Now people could be like, well, Christians own slaves too. Yeah, but Christians were the ones who pressed against it. When it came to the civil rights movement, a lot of Christians were the ones spearheading that. A lot of things that people enjoy now is because of Christianity. And it's really easy to say that they virtually got nothing right when literally you're standing on that. It's like the most ungrateful spit in the face ever. It's like, whether I agree with somebody or not, I can at least look back and go, but I appreciate the work that they did. You know, like they actually really helped us. For example, it was a Muslim who began the Kalam cosmological argument. Okay, well, give them credit where credit's due. Doesn't mean I have to agree with Islam. But nope, virtually nothing is what we get from Dawkins. He can't throw Christianity a bone at all. So this is why, again, I think he is just not a pleasant person in any way. And he's also objectively not a good scholar. He's just not in this department at all. I'm sure he's got areas that he has value, but when it comes to religion and philosophy, he actually has no idea what he's talking about. And he just shows that he has such an ill-conceived bias against Christianity that he can't even look at it objectively at all. And it's kind of sad, because he would probably actually be more effective in his atheist propaganda if he actually learned to throw Christianity a proper bone once in a while. But no. Anyway, all right, sorry. It's not about Dawkins. This is about my beef with Peterson, okay? We'll get there.
That's all. I don't value Christianity as a truth system at all.
Okay, so let me ask you about that, because maybe that's true and perhaps it's not. So the first question is, do you think that there are any marked differences between cultural traditions that would enable you to rank order them in terms of their ethical validity?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so for example, we could contrast mainstream UK Christianity with Islamic fundamentalism.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a hierarchy.
There is a hierarchy.
Okay, a hierarchy that points to what?
Well, in the case of Islam, I dislike any religion which punishes apostasy with death, that throws gay people off high buildings, that practices clitoridectomy. That seems to me to place Islam on a lower level than Christianity, but that
seems to me. But remember, there's no good, there's no bad, and Dawkins' view. So it just seems to him there really is no objective truth here. So it's not really wrong to throw them off buildings. It's not really wrong to punish apostasy with death. It's just, you get the idea when it comes to Dawkins. He's just disingenuous as all get out. Anyway, yeah, actually, here it is. The universe, here, exact quote from Dawkins. The universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is at bottom, no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. But now he's going to complain about Islam. So Peterson's right to talk about there seems to be a hierarchy in values, but what do they point to would be a moral value system, an objective moral truth teller of some sort, an objective moral nature to the universe, a natural law, so to speak. But Peterson also gets himself in hot water here as well. So anyway.
That's not to say anything very positive about Christianity.
Well, it might be to say something positive about Christianity. I think that question is open, because you might ask yourself, what did Christianity get right that led it away from those particular presumptions and towards something that you regard as more ethically appropriate? This isn't a trivial question.
It's a very modest claim. There's not very much. I mean, to to be better than a religion that throws gay people off high buildings is not really a very virtuous achievement.
Okay. I love this 21st century. Sorry, I love this insulated 21st century privileged nonsense that comes out of Dawkins's mouth right here. Oh, it's not that difficult to be better than them. They're the worst. Okay, first off, again, you said a blind, pitiless indifference, no good, no evil. That's your words, okay? So you're not better than anything. There is no better in your world. Stop. Now you are literally borrowing from my worldview. I say there are things that are better and good. You do not. So buy your worldview and just say, it's something I don't like. That aside, the other issue here is very clearly the fact that he is outright forgetting the culture in which these religions began. Is it really that hard to not be better than Islam? Are you kidding me? Back then, during the time of Rome where might makes right, when it was common to kill people for disagreement, for not conforming, for all those things, that was normal back then. So for Christianity to outright reject that instead to become martyrs is to do it makes Christianity outrageously different than the rest. So this whole it's not that hard to be that much different. Back then, yes, it was. Again, sitting on the shoulders of all the Christians before you, you could easily come off that way. But that's just arrogance and hubris speaking, and not actually from an objective position. Dawkins, you don't know what you're talking about here, because it would have been much easier for Christians instead to persecute people the same way and to convert or die. In fact, isn't that what people bicker about Constantine? When Constantine finally became a Christian and he turned everyone into Christians, which is not really what happened, but that's the narrative. So no, you're wrong. It is actually very easy to become the same as Islam. Actually, it's actually would have been much harder back then to be better than Islam, because people like Muslims and the Roman Empire were all about killing people who did not agree with them or would not conform. So anyway, no idea what they're talking about. That much is very, very, very clear. All right, let's go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true, because if you look at the barbarism that characterizes the human past, you might think that any progression whatsoever towards something approximating mercy and tolerance is nothing short of a bloody miracle.
Well,
that's basically what I just said, but in a nutshell.
Like, people are pretty ruthless, and so are our chimpanzee cousins.
Yes, they are.
Right. So we move forward into the light with great difficulty.
Yes,
and the fact that we can take...
What's the light, though? He calls the light, but this is where Peterson's about ready to... No, okay, whatever. I gotta stop pausing. I gotta let it play.
That for granted now, and that it seems self-evident and deserving of faint praise. It's not so clear to me that that's a reasonable proposition.
Okay, let's grant the faint praise, but that has nothing to do with the truth value. And what I care about is the truth value. I see no truth value in the claims of Christianity, the virgin birth, the resurrection.
Okay. The truth claims of the virgin birth and the resurrection, but the truth claims as well of you're made in the image of God. You have inherent worth and value. No one can take your worth and value. No one belongs being a tyrant over you. You're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself. You're supposed to serve one another for the betterment of the following generations. Selflessness, kindness, forgiveness, grace, justice, peace. All those things are also part of the Christian truth claims. But to Dawkins, about the virgin birth and the resurrection. That's part of it. But there is a lot more to the truth claims that the shoulders on which you are standing on right now, Dawkins. Because I promise you, if it wasn't for Christianity, you would not have the worldview you have in Europe. Because, well, have you looked at what European people were like before the Roman Empire? I mean, let's be honest. All right, okay, move on.
Miracles. Do you believe in any of those? Do you believe Jesus was born a virgin?
This is where it gets good, though, because Peterson's unwillingness to just state that he's a Christian or to actually absolutely claim that he believes in God, because he actually has multiple times refused to do so. Now, keep in mind, a few months ago, Alex O'Connor pressed him on whether or not, if he set up a camera right in front of the tomb of Jesus, would the camera record Jesus walking out? And Peterson, I would assume yes. So everyone's like, oh my gosh, Peterson's a Christian. He just affirmed the resurrection. But listen to this. Listen to the way he goes about this. This is different. You have to listen carefully.
As I said before, there are elements of the text that I don't feel qualified to comment on. My experience has been that the more, like, I know from a metaphorical perspective and from a mythic perspective what the story of the virgin birth means, and I accept that. I know, for example, that any culture that doesn't hold the image of the woman and infant sacred dies. And I don't know how that needs to be expressed in a form.
True, though?
So he psycholizes the text, right? Well, the virgin birth, the idea of Mary giving birth to the Son of God, is this idea that the mother and the child is sacred. Now, there's some truth to that, where like the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church has really pointed out to the fact that, like, because she is the mother of God, she gave birth to God, and God created all of us, that in a sense she's the mother of all. So the idea of like this, it is really this idea of this like a perfect mother figure to aspire to, full of grace and love. Fine, whatever. But that's not what he's saying. He's saying that he doesn't feel qualified to comment on the truth claim of whether or not the virgin birth is physically real. Okay. He is obsessed, Dawkins said earlier in this that Peterson's drunk on symbols, and he is, because these symbols need to be pointing to something of reality, I would think, to some degree or other. Otherwise, they're just ethereal nothings floating in the air. Okay.
Do you mean that you don't know?
Well, let me ask you about that, because truth, this is something I talked with Sam Harris about too. Truth, as we know, is a tricky business. Do you think there are differences in the truth claims between different writers of fiction? Like, is Dostoevsky more profound than...
No, well, I wouldn't call fiction truth claims anyway. I mean, he's a...
Then on what grounds do we rank order the fiction in terms of quality? Like, Dostoevsky is a profound purveyor of fiction on the philosophical front, unbelievably deep and profound. Yes, there's something true about what he's writing about.
It's nothing to do with the truth that science is concerned with. The truth of science is the truth that gets us to the moon. I mean, this is nothing to do with whether one writer of fiction has a sort of insight into human nature. That goes without saying. I accept that.
Okay, so how do we deal?
So Dawkins is right. I hate to say it, but yes, there is truth claims, and the Bible does not seem to approach these things as like a fiction writer writing something about human nature or about reality and using a narrative to commentate on that. It does do that a little bit in certain areas, like when it's polemical, but it also seems to be writing as truth claims themselves. Like the events actually happened, at least in a lot of areas of the Bible, including the virgin birth and death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ himself. So Peterson's trying to dodge this, and he always dodges. He always dodges this particular topic, and it drives me crazy because everyone wants to treat him like he's an absolute friend to Christianity, and I wouldn't say he's unfriendly to Christianity, but I wouldn't also say that he's like the most profound. He's like some crazy Christian himself, because it seems like, in all honesty, he seems to avoid it. All right, let's keep trucking. Let's see what this has to say.
Deal with the notion that on the purely factual side, how do we deal with the idea? Let's take you talked about clitoridectomy. Let's talk about the oppression of women.
Yes.
We make a scientific case that that's inappropriate, or is it a case that we're making on some other grounds? Like I see in the Judeo-Christian tradition, one of the earliest pronouncements is that both men and women carry the image of God, both. And that sets a certain tone to everything that follows. And it is a remarkable proclamation, given its radical age, that both men and women carry the image of God and are to be treated as something with intrinsic value outside of the domain of power and politics. And it isn't obvious to me, having thought about this a lot, how we deal with that in the pure realm of fact.
That's a good point. Okay. Because the image of God really is like a bedrock doctrine for Judaism and Christianity that has radically changed the way we approach things. However, is the image of God just a metaphor for like, we're all human in the end? Or is it actually saying that you are created in the likeness of the divine, and that the divine is real, and the divine is not just real as far as an ideal, this light that he'll talk about, this ambiguous light or this ideal, but rather a person who is the light, who is the ideal? Because otherwise, what the ideal is without God is actually just a subjective claim and belief about something else. What you think is ideal is different than what someone else thinks is ideal, right? Adolf Hitler has a different ideal than Mother Teresa. And we could go on at Mao and whatever, Stalin. All these people have different ideals than perhaps Abraham Lincoln, right? So what's ideal is different. So is the image of God real? Is it actually referring to a real God? Which is it, Peterson? We are asking you because you're propping yourself up as a thought leader for this generation, which I think is very much needed. And a lot of the messages that you have is very needed. But also what they need is someone with the courage to follow through with your own rule, which is to be precise in your speech and to tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And I know he would say, well, I'm not lying because I'm telling you what I think about these symbols metaphorically. But that's not what they're asking you, Peterson. And you know that. So to dodge that into saying that you're actually speaking what you think is to dodge the question of what they're saying. And therefore, you're not telling the truth. You're avoiding the truth. So you're not living up to your own rule here. Don't be a hypocrite. We are asking you a simple question. What do you think about the virgin birth and the resurrection of Jesus Christ? Are they real? Is the Bible talking about actual facts and reality, or is it all just metaphor?
Because one of the facts is, if I can oppress you, why the hell shouldn't I?
Yeah, my job is to keep things on track here. I think there are a number of questions which Professor Dawkins has asked quite directly that we still haven't really heard an answer to.
Okay.
Professor Dawkins asking about the virgin birth. You started talking about metaphor, you started talking about myth. I think anybody listening to this conversation will understand that maybe a society that doesn't believe in the virgin birth won't work. Maybe that's the predictive power that you're talking about. But I think you must understand that when Professor Dawkins is asking you, do you believe that Jesus was born of a virgin? He means something like a biological fact. And by the way, saying I don't know, or saying, I'm not qualified to comment, is an answer to that question. But is that your answer, that you don't know?
No, Alex is reiterating the question, but I don't think Peterson missed the point of the question. I think he's purposely dodging it because he has done this for years. So they're going to keep pressing him on this. Now watch.
I said earlier, and I would hold to this, is that there are elements of the text that I don't know that I'm incapable of fully accounting for. I can't account for what the fundamental reality and significance of the notion of the resurrection is. My knowledge just ends.
Sure, but
I know that whatever happened as a consequence of the origination and the promotion of the Christian story was powerful enough to bring Rome to its knees and demolish the pagan enterprise. So there's some power in that story that's remarkable.
You mean the power of maybe possibly a real, truly resurrected Jesus? That all powers, both earthly and spiritual, will be brought under the feet of the risen King? Like, what else would be that this tiny oppressed group of crazy Christ followers somehow destroyed the entire pagan enterprise and overthrew the Roman Empire and they turned into a Christian empire? How does that happen? Are they all just a bunch of madmen? Or did people actually see something that would be life-changing, which would be a resurrected Jesus? Just saying, Peterson. That's the frustration, is that it's like no one has fully ever pressed him on the evidences of the resurrection and the historical veracity there. And I would love to see how he responds to some of that. But let's keep watching on what happens in this conversation. Let's go.
Stick to the virgin birth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the virgin birth results from a mistranslation of Isaiah. You know that.
Oh, come off it, Dawkins. Comes from a mistranslation of Isaiah. You got to know that, right? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. You really think that, Dawkins? Okay. Dawkins, this is why you should sit down and let the theologians actually do the work, and you should not. The word in Isaiah can mean a young woman in the Hebrew. It can also mean virgin. It can be neither one. The word is used for both. Okay. And then the New Testament, it clarifies that this is because it was not just a young woman, but a young virgin woman, because you expect very young women typically would be virgins, right? They haven't been around a long time. They haven't been married before. It's kind of why that word is used hand in hand. So maybe you should sit down, pick up your crayons, and let the theologians do the work. Okay. Okay. All right. It's just, it always drives me crazy when that comes up, where it's like, nope, not a mistranslation of the text. You're just not understanding how semantic range works, and then the clarification in the New Testament on how that actually was applied. So anyway, it's like atheist propaganda. It's like when you find the atheists on Reddit and you're just like, you guys talk real confidently for things you know nothing about. And what is that? It's clearly like a philosophical bias against Christianity, like, because you just can't throw them the bone of even Isaiah possibly referring to a virgin birth. I guess probably because that would go into prophetic claims, and you would want to try to discredit as many prophetic claims as possible, because the more prophecy that you say is true could actually go against you, I guess, in this world, because it would just show the fact that maybe there's some truth to prophecy. But anyway, okay, moving forward.
Like these sorts of questions, what would you say? They don't strike me as, they're not getting to the point.
I know that. I know
has a purpose.
Yes.
Well,
what do you mean that's not getting to the point? It is the point. Like Peterson, like Dawkins, this is where I'm like, I hate to be on Dawkins' side here. It's like when I had to sit next to Dawkins, I'd be like, "You're right, bro. Let's get him." Like we have stumbled across a truly insane part of the multiverse. But it is the point. The whole point is that if Christianity is true, there is a king that is worthy of worship. There is a savior who restores all things. There's a savior who descended into the very mouth of death itself and destroyed it, killed the powers of darkness, and now raises up new life to all who believe in him, and claims that all who come unto him will experience the salvation, and in the end, judgment upon that which is evil, and justice fully restored in all its majesty in a new creation. Like, these are huge. Like, that, it is the point. No, there are other things you can apply to it, but the point is that there's a true God who truly loves you, who truly went down to the, like I said, the jaws of death for you to destroy it over us. The power of the tyrant of sin and death is destroyed because of Jesus Christ. And therefore, all the strongholds and evil in your life you can be freed from. Like, these are huge. This is the point, Peterson. It just drives me crazy, because his desire to avoid the obvious question here is just, be precise in your speech, Peterson, and tell the truth, or at least don't lie. That's what you say. That's your rules.
And look, I understand that there's perfect reasons to debate this. I know that. And I know that your question is more than valid, but it's beside the issue as far as I'm concerned. And it's partly because, well, when we started this conversation, I said, for example, that it appears to be the case that a description of the structure through which we see the world is a story. We see the world through a story. And so that's a remarkable thing. That's a remarkable discovery. And it's emerged probably in the last 60 years in multiple disciplines, because we have to prioritize our facts. And so we prioritize them according to a particular pattern. And there are patterns that seem to work and to propagate themselves properly and to orient cultures towards life abundant. And there are other patterns, the pattern of Cain, for example, that lead to absolute bloody devastation. And I don't know exactly how to construe that sort of truth. But we talked about the oppression of women, for example. It's like, how do you make a case on purely factual grounds that women should be treated as equals?
It's a moral question. And
I know that's exactly.
And I was dealing with a factual question, which is, did Jesus have a father?
So again, Peterson spiritualizing the passage and spiritualizing all those things, and all of that is very true. But Dawkins is like, yeah, okay, whatever. We get to the moral telling of what the Bible means, what the Bible is trying to drive with various morals. But is this real?
And you won't answer it.
Well,
it's
Jesus
a different kind of question.
Father and a heavenly father, like almost all mythological heroes.
So he wasn't born of a virgin then? So you're saying that Jesus was not born of a virgin?
I said, first of all, that I don't know how to mediate the fact-value dichotomy in that case. I said the same thing about the resurrection.
It's not a value. It's a simple fact. I mean, did a man...
Maddening. So Jesus did have an earthly father, and that was Joseph. Okay. He has a heavenly father. Okay. That's the same for everybody, as Peterson said. But the question is, was he born of a virgin? Was that earthly father his father because of normal biological processes of things like sex? That's the question, and Peterson's dodging it.
And have intercourse with Mary and produce Jesus? That's a factual question. It's not a value question.
You must understand what you're being asked here, that even if you think that, say, the author of the biblical texts intended much more significance than a simple scientific analysis of events, Professor Dawkins is interested in scientific truth. That's the kind of truth that he's interested in. And even if you think it's irrelevant to the point of what the gospel authors were getting at, that first needs to be clarified before you can then begin actually uncovering what the stories are about. So I think Professor Dawkins is asking from a scientific perspective, and maybe you think that scientific approach is wrong. But if you just take it for a moment, maybe this is how we find out that it is wrong. Let's take a scientific approach, ask the question, did this occur?
I think that it's inappropriate to use a question like that to attempt to undermine the validity of the entire, what would you say, deep mythological enterprise.
It's so irritating. I just think that the question's asking the wrong, like, well, it's just trying to undermine the truth. Like, no, they're trying to figure out because the truth claim is that actually happened, then Christianity is true, and therefore we should all be Christians. Okay. That's it. But Peterson seems to be afraid to affirm the truth claims of Christianity and therefore to proclaim Jesus Christ as the risen Son of God with his mouth. So if he seems to be afraid to do that, is he a Christian? No. Nothing about Peterson actually seems to be saying that he's a Christian. Everything is mythologized with him. So when that camera is put in front of the empty tomb and then he says that Jesus would have walked out, he could have bought into a swoon theory or any other theory, doesn't mean that he actually believes that Jesus experienced the full resurrection. Okay. And the technical sense of the term. So he's saying the question he thinks is wrong, and he will not answer whether or not Jesus was born of a virgin, which, by the way, it's not the gotcha that Dawkins seems to think it is. You first have to disprove that God even exists, because if God does exist, someone can be born of a virgin, because miracles can happen. And also there's various views on how the virgin birth, what was the seed of the man. So some people believe like maybe God used the actual, what the seed of Joseph would have been to impregnate her. Who knows? When people start theorizing how all that happened, I'm like, ask God one day. But the whole point of the virgin birth was, quote, this will be a sign unto you. That was kind of the whole point. That was a sign. Okay. And remember, for her to have experienced pregnancy beforehand would have been a shame. Joseph was like, I didn't do that. And so he was going to put her away quietly to not humiliate her. And instead, an angel revealed itself, was like, actually, this is from the Lord. So anyhow, it just depends on what I guess you mean. So let's check this out.
Suppose we were asking out of interest. Suppose that we were all here devout Christians, maybe even Jungian Christians, and we thought, this is interesting, over dinner. Do you think it really happened, like scientifically? Would your answer just be, I don't know?
Yes.
And you wouldn't consider it, I mean, it's not an inappropriate question to ask, just on a point of interest.
Right.
Did this really occur? And I think so often people are asking you that, and especially given the context of this conversation, we've heard everything that you're saying about metaphor and myth, but because the question is still then being asked, did it really happen? You know that that's what you're being asked. And the way you just so easily said yes, I wonder why you struggle to do that in so many other circumstances.
I think because I don't look at the situation the same. The way that Dr. Dawkins and I look at the situation are really quite different, and at many, many, many levels. So even on the meme question, for example, like I know the literature on the history of religious ideas. I see how these ideas have battled across millennia in a manner that is very reminiscent to me of the same sort of claim that Dr. Dawkins is putting forward with regards to meme. I know that literature. Dr. Dawkins doesn't know that literature. It's very difficult for me to communicate from within the confines of that literature because it's extensive and deep. And we're dealing with things.
He does have a point here. Dawkins actually does not understand religious texts or historical mythical texts and how they all work with each other. So he's got a good point. That is a really unfortunate place to pause. Poor Dr. Peterson. So he's actually got a good point here. Like Dawkins just simply, he's not familiar with the literature. He hasn't studied the literature. He's not in a place to really comment on the literature. Instead, he just has really arrogant, low-hanging fruit statements without trying to understand. Like the amount of times that he has like attacked the Levitical law, for example, while actually not understanding how the Levitical law actually worked, the case law, how it worked, how compared even to the Hammurabi laws, things like that. Like he's clueless. Okay, but he just is like he just says no, eat shrimp, like God bad, like it's this childish stuff. So Peterson's got a point here, but again, Peterson's refusal to actually say, do you think this event occurred, or do you think it's up there with all the other mythological texts? And I have a hunch as to why he won't, because if he admits what he actually believes, which I think Tim the Ancient in the text has a good point, that he's like one of those old school liberals who basically holds to religious actually, right, is this the one? Peterson shouldn't be so dismissive. Paul certainly cared about the fact of the matter. He said we should just drink ourselves to death if the resurrection isn't true. That is a fact. I can't find. All right, here we go. Tim the Ancient said this: my impression of Peterson is that he's an old-fashioned liberal and a theological one as well. So theological liberal in the technical sense of the word. But because of his audience, he just can't open up about that fact. Exactly. I think the reason why he can't just say it is because he knows many Christians and Jews and theists and people of various religious practices really enjoy what he has to say, because he actually is tapping into a lot of truth of the biblical text. But as soon as he says that he believes it's just myth, and that's all it is, he knows his audience will be enraged. And I don't think anyone will be as enraged as he thinks, because I think we all see the forest for the trees, and we've seen it for a long time, that he does not seem to actually believe in the death, burial, and resurrection of the Son of God. So, anyway.
That we don't understand the relationship between metaphoric truth and value predicated truth and factual truth. We don't understand that. It's a big problem. We cannot, there's no evidence whatsoever from the scientific perspective that we can orient ourselves in the world merely in consequence of the facts.
Sure.
And that's a fact. And it's a fact that's been detailed out in great detail in the last 60 years by people from a variety of different disciplines. We have to prioritize the facts. That's a value hierarchy. There may be true and false ways of prioritizing facts, but you can't determine the truth or falsehood of the way that you prioritize facts by making reference to the facts. That's a big problem.
Okay, let's talk about that as perhaps a slight detour here, because I think we do need to come back to this Christ resurrection thing. But Professor Dawkins, would you say that underlying the scientific enterprise is a fundamentally unscientific assumption? You can make scientific investigations in the world, but in order to do so, you need to choose what to prioritize. You need to choose what to investigate. You also need to value the truth. You need to have a value and a motivation for doing it in the first place. Those kinds of things cannot themselves be scientifically justified. And so does the scientific enterprise have an unscientific assumption of space?
I suppose it does. I mean, I think that maybe just be Jordan and Richard, by the way. I think that Jordan prioritizes myth and I prioritize fact. And I think myth is kind of vaguely interesting, but it's not the be-all and end-all of my life. I think it's...
And this is where Peterson would say, who's to separate myth from reality if myth is driving at something? Or the fact is that Christianity is real and true. That's also possible. And this goes into like the way Dawkins is just, you can just tell he's the most disingenuous person. I'm interested in fact. He's interested in myth. It's like, but what Peterson was saying is that you can't divorce the truth claims that the myths are driving at. So clearly Dawkins is just all about positioning himself rhetorically here in a better light. But I think what it is that Dawkins wants to know whether or not he actually affirms that those actually happened, and Peterson doesn't believe that those actually happened. But he does. He also, two things. One, I also think Peterson is right to claim the new atheists out, like Dawkins, as he's done many times in the past, on being really dumb at attacking the foundations of the truth claims of those various stories of biblical texts and a lot of the morals that these things are driving at, because the new atheists have attacked that so much. And he's like, you're dumb because you don't know what's going to replace it. And then we see Dawkins complaining now that cultural Christianity is being replaced. So Peterson's right there. So I think that's one of the reasons why Peterson is correct to be like, no, you can't just dismiss these things. But also Peterson is wrong because he won't just bite the bullet and say these things are true. 100% true. And you actually are kind of putting yourself on the odd one out because you have to find a way to disprove that the Bible is actually not driving at truth claims. I think Dawkins would be hard pressed to actually try to come up with real reasons to like actually press against Christianity. So anyway, that's that, I guess. We'll keep moving.
Somewhat secondary to scientific facts, the sort of facts that tell us how old the universe is, how old the world is, the history of life, the engineering achievements of landing a spacecraft on a comet. These are the things that science can do. And as I said, the predictions of quantum theory, to come back to that, the predictions of quantum theory, which are verified to a sufficient number of decimal places that it's equivalent to predicting the width of North America to one hair's breadth. Now, that is, however difficult quantum theory is to understand, that is what you can get from quantum theory. Now, the mysteries of the Bible, if they are mysteries, aren't in the same league. I mean, they just don't cut it.
Attention, man who still believe in the...
So that's okay. Jeremy's razors. That is so one of the funny things. All right. So that's that. That's all I really want to talk about as far as Peterson is concerned. You guys can see, just pre-ordered Ian Rock. Oddly enough, if you just pre-ordered it, that's kind of funny because it's actually live right now, buddy. Let me go quickly check. Did I get your order in? Yep, got it right here. All right. Well, so it's funny because I actually just ran out of inventory this week and I got a couple orders and one order got mixed up. So I do have to order another box and those take a week or two usually to get to me. So you can expect it in the next couple of weeks, but just so you know, it is available on Amazon now. It's on like England time, but you'll get signed since you ordered it that way. So there's that. But anyhow, so this right here is just what drives me absolutely crazy. Oh, let's see what Linguas Amo says. He says, it seems like he operates under that precept. So there are all these things. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Also, he was like, we all are. Linguas Amo also says, we all aren't young earth creationists who reject science, Richard G's. And that's kind of the whole issue here with Dawkins as a whole. He obviously is not qualified to talk about religion, even though that's what he literally makes like his entire living on. What most everyone knows him for is his constant commentary on religion, even though he's not qualified to talk about it. Peterson is qualified to talk about the morals of it, but he is too chicken to actually say what he believes, which I would actually respect him because, by the way, just so you guys know, I'm not making crap up. Right here, I'm going to share my screen with y'all and look at this. His 12 rules for life. What is rule number 8? Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And he is continually not telling the truth here and dodging the questions that people are asking. It drives me bananas. He's not a Christian. He doesn't believe it, guys. He believes it's just myth. He really thinks that the morals that it's driving out are really important, but he will not affirm the resurrection right now. And we should pray for Peterson that he does, because I said it for a while. If Peterson actually jumps on the Jesus resurrected from the dead train, we would have the next C.S. Lewis. But right now, he's not. And until then, we need to pray for him. Be careful on the amount of authority we put on him. Because bottom line is, when a bunch of atheists have to keep pressing him and he keeps dodging the question, it's incredibly frustrating. And it just shows, by the way, that he's not, like, in this area, he's not living up to his own rules. He's not telling the truth. And you can say, well, at least don't lie. Well, that's still not answering the question, though. What does he personally think? He just says, oh, I just don't think I'm qualified to comment. You're not qualified to comment on what you believe, on whether or not you believe these are true things that have taken place in history. How are you not qualified to say what you personally think, like what your personal assessment is? You are absolutely qualified to say what you think personally. It just drives me nuts. So anyway, Dawkins is clueless. Peterson has a clue, but is too chicken to actually say what he thinks. And Alex O'Connor is classy, but he needs to get rid of that mustache. Anyway. Well, guys, today was my daughter's 4th birthday, so we celebrated that. Took her swimming, took her to a Mexican restaurant, mainly because she just likes to eat chips and salsa. Then we got a unicorn cake, as you do for a 4-year-old girl. Then tonight at youth group, we carved pumpkins. So today's been a busy day, so I'm not going to be on the stream very long. It's been fun. Yeah, seriously, right? Linguasamo, right? Thank you. Yes, no mustache for Alex. Like, bro, like, you look better without it. Just don't. I kind of have a general rule, by the way, when it comes to facial hair with men, and I'm probably going to upset some people, but I generally believe clean shaven or beard. Only like 1% of men can pull off a mustache, and only like 2% of men can pull off a goatee or anything else. Otherwise, clean shaven or beard. Those are your options. Okay. That is from the Pope Will. I'm the authority here. Okay. I'm the captain now. So, yeah, but guys, just so you're also aware, Crushing the Great Serpent is live on Amazon. You can order this right now through Amazon. You don't have to order through me and wait for me to get my shipment and then me to ship it to you, which takes like a month. Okay. You don't have to do that. You can actually straight up just order your copy now. I've been told by many, many people that it is the best, like, overall look at the atonement from a different angle without jumping into 4,000 books that are overly academic. I wrote this to challenge penal substitutionary atonement for the everyman while still looking at scholarly things, footnoting those, and just discussing the issues as they need to be, but like not getting too much in the weeds. So please order it there. Leave a 5-star review. I want this book to be kind of the go-to book on that particular topic. If I can make that happen, that would be awesome. So if you guys could do that, help me out. That'd be huge, huge help. Also, again, support me on Patreon. Just so you guys are aware, what I'm trying to do right now is my wife and I are expecting our 2nd child in February. We did not think we could have a 2nd kid. The first one was kind of a miracle in and of itself, and now this 2nd pregnancy is going amazing, which is crazy because the other one had so many problems. We're having another little girl. But my wife works part-time. We did this shift when I became when I went back into ministry, where she started working part-time, and she did that on purpose, because she also believes, like me, that we belong in ministry, that's where our heart is. But because we have a newborn coming, she's just gonna have to stay home. That's all there is to it. Like we can't do the newborn thing with her working. So pray for us, because our original plan kind of got shot financially, especially when your boy broke his leg. So what I need to do is I need to increase the YouTube thing. So every like and every comment does help, because it helps increase the income that is made from it. And even though I'm not doing this to be rich, I'm doing this so I can pay my bills, and so my wife and I can live just a comfortable middle-class life as much as possible. Okay. But right now, things are going to be really tight. So if you guys could just share these along, if you can support me on Patreon, that's awesome. You do not have to. Just liking and commenting. It's free, and it really does help push the algorithm to get these videos out to other people. So that way we can keep pushing this. I need about double what I'm doing on YouTube right now to make up what my wife is doing. And so we're praying that the Lord is able to do it. We know he can. But anyway, Nick went to the comments, goes, will be like, my leg, my back. It's true though. No one told me that when I turned 30, I'd become like an old, like old broken man, like where I'm like, it's going to be cold tomorrow. Why? I could feel it in my bones. But after I broke my leg, it really, without insurance, it really caused problems. Prior to watching this interview, I didn't realize how awful Dawkins is at processing abstract thoughts. Did anyone else feel that way? Ian, you are absolutely correct. He is really bad at it. And he always says he just concern himself with science and with facts. But bottom line is he just doesn't deal with abstract thoughts at all, which is why he's such a bad philosopher, which is why he's so bad at when it's like the universe seems to be exactly what we'd expect. If there is no meaning, no good, no evil, only, cold, pitiless indifference, and then turns around and says that the God of the Bible is bad and naughty, and mean and homophobic. He sucks at abstract thoughts. That's part of this problem. I could do Nick, that's a great idea for content, which is to do a live stream commentary of my convo with Redeemed Zoomer. I'm rooting for you on that one, by the way, man. So anyhow, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for watching, but I'm going to hop off here, go home, and kiss the girls goodnight, upload some audios of these episodes that I'm behind on, and my audio listeners are harassing me. Sorry. And get moving. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Share it along with your friends. This is the shortest live stream I've ever done in my life, which is good. So we might be getting better at this, actually. So, all right, guys. So take care and God bless.